Hello, everybody. We have been talking of destinies, powers of our thoughts. Let it not escape from our minds that we are looking at how our thoughts influence everything in our lives. And today I wish to invite all of us to look on how we choose our destinies through the infinite power deposited within us, facilitated by our thoughts. If I was to tell you, here is a banana and here is an apple, pick one. Whatever you pick is completely your free choice. The fact is that we have the power of free choice. But what do I suggest when I say this? When I say that we have power of free choice? Just to set a foundation of what we will be looking at in this episode, allow me to expound on what I have just said. A few minutes before you picked either your banana or your apple, your brain makes the decision for you. It is after this decision has been made deep in your subconscious that your brain becomes aware and we become convinced that we are in a process of making that decision. Well, we have made that decision, convinced that we are making that decision, which our mind has done for us. Then we can as well go back and make the same choice or change our choices based on our past experiences of maybe one choice we have made and probably did not do well with us. Yet, all this is at our free choice. Our journey here will be aimed at proving that in life we are sole authors of our destinies through the power within us, influenced by our thoughts. Now, if you have been following the episodes in the first episode where we looked at the power within us in the perspective of faith, we said that our subconscious is that spirit that lies dormant unless is exercised with a conscious mind with no offense. We saw that the brain is the heart. We do not tell the heart what to do, it just does. So, in reality, consciously making a decision, that experience we call free will, it's actually visualization of events that the brain, that is our hearts, has already set in motion. This tells us that our brain has already decided for us. We saw that from our subconscious comes what we feed it with. And this calls us to be careful on what we feed our brains with, because that is exactly what it will bring at table when we are in need of anything from within us. We also saw that our hearts can be more clear when it is in frequency with the infinite power within us. And we also saw that this heart can be reached in calmness and self-awareness. It is the infinite power which moves the brain, the heart, to choose what aligns with the will of God. When it comes to the issue of fate versus free will, which is what we are looking at today, we have two groups of people. One group claims that a man or a person is so closely bound to the will of fate, it is impossible for him to live his life in any different way than what is mapped out for him. Then, on the other hand, the other group believes that man is not bound at all, but is as free as air. So, looking at these two groups, they are both wrong to a certain extent, and they are both also right in other part. It is true that we are born to the will, yet at the same time we have free will. This is another great paradox of life. Our traditions held that the truth of the inner teaching that man, when he is uninformed and before he is unfolded, is bound to the will of fate very closely. I hope you remember what we said of an informed man. It is the one who has not come in connection with his inner infinite power, who has not discovered his oneness with the powerhouse, and he is not aware of his infinite power within him. The unfolded man follows his desires, which means he is guided by his animal instincts, but not by the real spiritual power within him. Thus, this certain person who is led by desires and instincts creates for himself a future from which he cannot escape. When, however, he becomes more evolved and liberated, he begins to resist following his desires and strives or instincts, and he starts to follow higher things. Or, as we saw, he starts exercising his spiritual being. This creates for him a better future, and thus he becomes free in comparison with his former state of slavery. I will say that we are slaves of fate as long as we are slaves of our desires of this passing world. These our desires of this passing world bonds us to that fate. However, we are free to overcome these lower things of this passing world or material things, and thus raise ourselves higher as spiritual beings. And you know what? This is what we call free will. Free choice. The good news is that when we rise ourselves from material beings to spiritual beings by connecting with the power within us, then we cease to create painful futures for ourselves and thus become free people with free will and make good choices freely, since we are not doing this with our human desires, but the spirit being which we have aroused within us does those choices for us in calmness. At this point, I want to say that there is a fate which is self-created in the process of living our lives. And there is a free choice still to reform that same fate we have created and taken another dimension of life, a different fashion of fate, if I can say. I repeat this, it's true. There is fate which we have created for ourselves, and still we have the free choice at any point of life to reform and change that kind of fate. Maybe physically it might not be possible, but spiritually is very much possible at any level, at any time. At any time you want to take back what rightly belongs to you, you are capable of doing that. Then most of us will be asking, how can we create our fate? Then I will answer, to the one who has not had much experience of life or who has not been a close observer of life events through meditation, contemplation, they may deny that there is nothing as created fate. But to the one who has had great change in his or her life, against which she or he has fought and struggled in vain, knows that there is a purpose working behind the events of life, against which even kings and mighty men are powerless to work out unless they are connected to their inner powers. It comes at times in our lives when we move heaven and earth, figuratively speaking, if I can say. That is, we pray until we can pray no more. We make sacrifices, which may be our money, our health, our time, and do everything that is in the power of human being to stop a threatening disaster. But in spite of all this, in spite of these cries and efforts, they fall into a pitiless heaven, and we feel that much of fate cannot be avoided. It moves forward like a huge force and crushes our hopes, our very life, and makes life unworthy living and leaves us in desolate. If then, you may ask, fate is so pitiless and so powerful, what can be done with it? And where does free will enter in this matter? Then I will reply, it must be admitted at once that there is no use fighting the fate. The more we fight it, the more completely we get broken. There are certain main events in life which must come to pass. Definitely. These events and changes are inevitable, and it is hopeless to fight against them. But the good news is that while these things which constitute what we call fate are inevitable and therefore cannot be avoided, it rests, or it all depends with ourselves how we meet these adversities and disasters, as we saw in the last episode, how to overcome difficulties through our thoughts with faith and conviction. And the answer is change your thoughts. Focus on other positive things in life instead. Believe in the power within you and entrust yourself to it to fight for you. Remember, if we meet the setbacks of life in the right spirit, we become strong and rich in character. That is what we saw. We are shaped through experiences. We become strong and stable and helpful influence to whoever we may meet in the future. It is one thing to try to meet trouble and adversity in the right spirit, and quite another thing to have the power to do so. One who thinks that he has no power within him or herself, but that all the power is circumstantial, can never rise victorious over the troubles and become a conqueror over life's difficulties. But the one who realizes that they possess a wonderful power that can rise them up, no matter how crushed they are, they can never fail in life. No matter what happens to them, they will play the spiritual man within them. They will exercise the spiritual man. They will exercise the spiritual being within them and act noble parts. They will rise from the ruins of their lives and build anew in greater beauty and splendor. It is true we may not prevent events happening in the parts of our lives, but we can rise superior to them. We will meet failures and setbacks in life, but the key point is to make these failures, setbacks, our stepping stones for success. But it's unfortunate for some of us who give up on these things, refusing to rise again and reconstruct our lives, condemning ourselves for further suffering, thus making more ruins of our lives. So, dear friends, do not despair in life. Take courage, live in the power within you, and you will rise to the heights which you have never dreamed of. With this power to help you, you can accomplish what apparently seems impossible. Good luck in exercising the infinite power within you.